reconvene the meeting that was continued to tonight due to the power outage yesterday. All board members are present. Let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll start with our open forum. We ask that you keep it to 3 minutes, and we may ask questions or may just have no response at this time. Dave? Sure.
Yep. Thanks for the opportunity to speak today.
Just a minute. Will they be able to pick him up if he's not? Yeah,
Oh,
you
you
might
can
have
stand,
to
but
sit.
stand close.
I can sit.
Yeah, there
I'm
you
all right with that too.
All right.
All right, thanks for the opportunity to speak today. I appreciate you guys letting me talk. I'm here today as a concerned parent. I have 2 children that are currently at Falcon Ridge. My youngest is in 1st grade, my oldest is in 3rd. And the issue that we've been having this year is larger than normal class sizes. Both of my children, Wes, who's the youngest, he's in a class size that's at the very top of the guidelines for this year. And if they were the same guidelines this year from last year, his class size would actually be above the recommended guidelines by the new PREG district. My oldest is in a classroom that's actually already above the current guidelines in the district. New PREG has a good history of educating children. I have no doubts about that. My wife's been in the district for about 11 years teaching. They do a great job educating, but at the same time, I think these guidelines that we've increased need to be lowered back down to a reasonable amount. As for children, I mean, studies upon studies have showed that smaller class sizes lead to success, to educational success. And when we have classrooms the size of 28, 29, 30 students, especially in these K through 5 grades, I don't think we're giving the kids the optimal ability to reach their potential that they may have. And I think that's a case where the teachers just can't, they're managing a class versus being able to work with the kids one-on-one. And I think if we were able to have these smaller class sizes back down to where they should be, I think in the 22, 23, 24 range at the most during these young ages, I think that would help the education that these kids are getting. I also think about the welfare of the teachers as well. As we know in this world, you know, public jobs, they're hard. They're hard on people, especially with these teachers when they have to teach 20, 29 kids. It's a lot of stress, especially with the higher standards they're supposed to be teaching now with reading at an earlier age. It just puts a lot of stress on teachers as well to try to get these kids to succeed. So, like I said, I'm here today on behalf of my own children. I'm here today also on the behalf of the teachers in that school as well. And I would hope that you guys would consider either lowering the standards or working with the superintendent to figure out a way to get these numbers lower, which might be as easy as adding 2 more sections to the school. And if it comes down to a budgetary issue, just lacking money to hire teachers for that school, then we need to consider some of those issues and why that we can't afford to put a couple new teachers in that school if we're able to do all these renovations and such. So that's what I have to say today, and if you have any questions, please go ahead and ask.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
Madam Chairman, I would like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second.
There's one important item. All the items are important, of course, but another retirement. Mary Jo Kunz has been here over 31 years, and she may have been in other, like the parochial school also. And she's been a very valuable para. And she never turned down any job or position. And and the kids always speak very highly of her, so we're gonna miss Mary Jo. Thank you for all the years.
Thanks, Don. All in favor of approving the consent agenda?
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0. Board committee reports. Policy.
We met last week and just had some annual policies, and there were no updates or changes to what we were reviewing.
Southwest Metro.
Southwest Metro met this past Tuesday, and it was a regular meeting, and all things were kind of within the realm of normal activities. There was a meet and confirm meeting that was held prior to the meeting, and at that meeting, it was brought up concerning some of the safety issues, which a lot of schools have been revisiting, especially with the things that have happened in other parts of the country. And so they are currently working on upgrading their safety provisions for the buildings, especially one building. It's called the 401 building, and this is a building that has been added on to over a number of years, and there are a lot of entrances, and they're working on upgrading the security on that building.
Like
with-
this one used to be.
Exactly, right, yeah, the more entrances there are, the more issues that you have with the building, so they're looking at that. And then we also, being that it's a meet and confer, we also talked a lot about the potential issues that would come up if the Supreme Court were to rule in favor of Janus versus ASME. That's the one where the fair share litigation is in front of the Supreme Court, and how that would impact future negotiations, and also the current contract that's in place right now. And all public sector and all union type of activities will be affected by that decision if it should be in favor of the plaintiff, Janus. So those were the main issues that we talked about at the meeting.
PAC meet.
No, we did not.
Community education.
Community ed, we haven't met for a while. Our next meeting is Thursday, May 10th, and I have nothing new to report. Do you have anything to report?
No, I think last time we said the brochures are out, the catalogs.
Wellness committee.
Wellness met last week. A couple things. Lindsay from Scott County shared that the farmhouse market in town here is partnering with the CLC, working on adding a community kitchen, and it would be a place for canning, processing, other type of activities. And there's a second farm event, Farm Fresh at Home, ready to make meals, and I guess the spots filled the same day as they had 75 spots available, and you go and assemble your meal, and it's either can be put in the freezer or you can make it that night, and it feeds a family of 6, and it's $5, and there's 75 participants doing this
Wow.
at the middle school on April 30th. And that's about it.
Did early childhood.
They didn't meet, but Mary Bartuszczyk said she will get me an update of activities that have been occurring throughout the year so that I can report on it the next time.
Superintendent reports.
All right, just an update. Tomorrow morning, Sandy Lynn and I will be going to Ties, and we'll find out our fate at that time as far as us leaving Ties and what the cost will be for that. So we're hoping for the best, but I know it's the right decision, and there's really, I don't know much else, but it'll be in your
Just
week.
let it be over.
Let it be over, and I'll give you all the information in my weekly email to you on Friday.
You feel many of the schools are kind of siding with us, or?
Well, there's about, is it 12? 12 school districts have announced or sent their letters in that they're getting out. So
Okay.
we'll be able to get out after this year. The other ones, if it dissolves, would be the following year. So hopefully.
And isn't it getting bought out potentially?
Yeah, I mean, we really don't have any information, but yeah.
But that wouldn't really impact us.
No.
We have made our decision, and we're going to stick with it.
Yep. So hopefully it's going to be best case scenario. And then the other thing, I just want to mention this. Well, we were going to have Ryan Wetchka here tonight, but we'll have him in May. He couldn't make it when we had to reschedule. Ryan was state champion in archery, so we're going to recognize him in May. The other thing I want to announce on Wednesday, May 9th, we've got 5 inductees into the Hall of Fame, and we also have our honors program that night. The Hall of Fame social will begin at 5:30 in the cafeteria, and the program will begin at 6:30. And the Hall of Fame recipients for 2018 are Thomas Borak, who will be Distinguished Alumni, Darlene Witt, Distinguished Alumni, and Dr. Terrence Witt. So those 3 will be inducted. It's been since 2012 that we've had recipients of this. And then for distinguished service, we have Irma Langer and Chuck Needus. So we've got 5 people, and we'll have you'll be getting a letter, and we're very excited for this, and I know their families are very proud, and they're very deserving people. So I thank Tony Boothie for taking that over. The Athletic Hall of Fame takes place in the fall, and so we've been getting nominations for that, and just promoting that and getting that a little bit more organized, I think is a very positive thing.
Since you brought it up, 2 of the other people graduated from Mankato State.
Really? A lot of very good graduates from Mankato State, including my wife.
Thank you. Action items. The first action item was the sale and consideration of the award of bonds, which is the one action item we did last night because they had to be approved within 24 hours of the bond sale. So Sandy's going to update on how that went.
Right, so we sold bonds for our high school roof and chiller project, and these bonds will be paid for out of our long-term facility maintenance revenue. And we received 6 bids on the bond. It was a very competitive sale, and the interest rate was slightly higher than what Springstead had anticipated. However, we received a premium on the bond. So when you take that into account, we lower the par amount of the bonds, even though the interest rate is somewhat higher. It was very, very close to their estimate.
Is that premium based on our good standing, financial standing, or what is that based on?
You know, it's just, sometimes bids come with premiums and sometimes they don't. It's just an individual decision. At the last minute they did, at first they didn't think they'd get a premium because it's such a small issuance, but they ended up getting a premium, so that was good news for the district because it lowers the amount of the bonds, the par amount of the bonds. Good. It was awarded to Baird. We received the good faith proceeds yesterday, and we'll receive the full bond proceeds on May 24th. The district received an AA3, and maintained its AA3 credit rating through Moody's, and that's good news. And we also take advantage of the enhanced credit program, which is an AA2 rating. So overall, it was a good sale. Obviously, interest rates have been climbing, but it's still a little less than, I think it was 2.58%. So still very low interest rates when you think about it, but they have been increasing slightly over the last several months as the Federal Reserve meets. So the board did approve the resolution last night, and just wasn't on camera because of the technical or the electricity issues that we had. So just wanted to provide an update for those who weren't here. Any questions?
Thank you. Metro class size presentation.
Yes. I give this class size study. It's by Metro XU, which stands for Metropolitan Educational Cooperative Service Unit. And they do an annual class size study. Been doing it for probably 12, 13 years right now. And this is something I've presented to you in the past, and I've also usually visit the schools with too, but with negotiations and everything, haven't had the time to do that right now. But I'll give that to you right now. Appreciate Dave coming tonight, parents that are here. You know, I respect and understand people's feelings about low class size, and I really respect the people that, it's great to be in a community that have parents that do care about education. And I know, speaking for myself, having 3 kids go through this system here, you know, doing the right thing's important, and very sensitive to that. And if I ever forget about it, obviously my wife's a teacher, she'll remind me, so. But what I want to go over first here is just the decision-making process for classroom staffing. So just to educate everyone, and also, I don't expect people to agree with me, but you know, just like being able to respect and understand other people's perspective, hopefully they'll be able to understand my perspective on how it's done. The first thing is enrollment data collection, and it starts after the first year as we're getting ready for kindergarten registration. And I will mention this, Samantha McDonald, who is our information systems specialist, has done a wonderful job the last 3-4 years with this, along with our clerical at each of the buildings to get accurate information, especially with kindergarten. And obviously Janelle, my assistant, you know, she does all the registrations and handles of the drops. And so we have a very good idea, because obviously it's very important data collection, not just for kindergarten, but for all the grades as we look into next year. The next thing is meeting with principals and Sandy Lynn. And obviously the principals are going to advocate for their building, and as we share the numbers and discuss what their needs are. And obviously Sandy, being the Director of Business Services and HR, is overlooking on that side too. We'd like to make an early decision in April for staffing based on our current numbers. And like I said, they're based on the current numbers. So a lot of it is rollover plus any new student registrations, any drops that we get, but it changes quite a bit. But as we're doing tonight, we're going to do staffing proposals. That's what it's based on right now. Could things change in a month? It happens every year, yes. Could things change by July or even August? We've hired teachers when all of a sudden when numbers change, and I'll show you on an enrollment thing, I think it was 4 years ago, it was the largest increase in students we had, and it came late, and we were hiring, I think, 2 teachers right in the, you know, on workshop week. So very sensitive. We closely monitor it April through August. When I go over guidelines tonight, I want to frame this by saying it's never black and white, okay? So the guidelines that we have, the guidelines that you approved and supported last spring are what they are, guidelines. It's a range. There are times that we've gone, I know 2 of our elementaries where we've added a teacher when we're within the guideline. And just so everyone knows, and sometimes we might be just outside the guideline. I know there's examples of that. Sometimes it gets difficult when it's on the high end and you have to make a decision. We had a 3rd grade class at Falconridge this year that was on the high end of the new guideline, and unfortunately we had 4 new students that were added. Now there was only 8 new students in the entire school for the whole year, but once you know, we had 4 just at that grade level. Likewise, we had 4th grade at Eagleview that had 92 or 93 students you know, registered, and we had 4 drops right before the beginning of the year. So it was the opposite thing. They ended up on below the guideline, and we had 88 students for 4 teachers. So their class sizes stayed, and what you know, we didn't have any new students. So it's an inexact science. I make the final decision on this, and it's not the principal, it's not Sandy Lynn, it's myself, and I'll take full responsibility in regards to that. I will say this, it's a balancing act between trying to keep class sizes as low as we can and also staying within the budget. Our budget right now going into next year is $42 million. And you know, our fund balance, and as you know, you saw the audit the last few years, we were fortunate that we've had a healthy fund balance being at 28% down to 26%. This year's audit, right around 22% of unreserved balance, and we're projected going for 17. So I keep that in mind. And one thing that's going on, go ahead. I should nod at her. I'm supposed to nod at her. Is obviously, as the fund balance is going down, our expenditures are over revenue, okay? And you know that, and we've gone over that. And the question is why? And basically, it's salaries and benefits. That's 82% of our budget is salaries and benefits. And with that, you know, as obviously we've been going through negotiations, we need to be competitive and fair. In regards to that, for all employee groups, we want to retain and attract the very best. And I can say this, in a little bit here, we're going to be approving, recommending, and you'll be voting on the teacher contract. And the teacher contract, 5 years ago, we were 10th out of 10 schools, or 10 school districts in regards to teacher pay. And Larry Kozlerich, who did a great job in this school district for those 2 years, said that will never be done to be able to get to an average salary, get to the middle of that. But in the last 3 negotiations, we're able to get to the average or just right at the middle of those 10 comparable school districts after this contract's approved tonight. And I've said this over and over again, the staff has heard me say this. I know at the middle school they got really tired of it, but it's about the people, not the programs, that make a district great. And so there's that balance of low class size, but keeping in mind the budget, which is, it's about people. And I just think people need to understand that. Our per pupil revenue, we're very fortunate to be supported by a great community. We've passed a bond referendum in the spring of 2015, and then 18 months later, we renewed an operating levy with an increase. And so we're getting $971 per kid right now, which some of the neighboring districts are at the minimum $724. That's very important, that's good. We're fortunate, but per pupil revenue, that's only, local revenue is only 9%. 86% comes from the state. And that's what is concerning. But the last, with Governor Dayton, I will say this, we've gone 2% and 2% the last 2 bienniums, which is good, because before then it was 1 and 1.5 and 0 and 1, and before that 1 and 0. So it makes it tough. So what's coming up in this next year is going to be very important. I want to mention that too now. But again, it's also important that there's the need, when I say to be competitive fair, but we also, I need to be very careful when I make my decisions, because if we keep adding and not staying within the guidelines, it concerns me, especially with our fund balance going down, because we'll end up into budget cuts and increased class sizes before we know that, and we'll have trouble with salaries too. We won't be able to get fair settlements like we should. So there's that balance, and it just goes back and forth. And it's difficult. I mean, I'm not asking for any pity, but that's what goes into making decisions too. All right, we'll go over enrollment trends and projections too right now. And I want to go over this to demonstrate the focus on the classroom. In the 5 years, it started here in 2013-14. Student enrollment was 3872, and currently it's 4159. So over the course of 5 years, we've increased by 7.4%. It's just been a steady. It's about about a percentage and a half a year, right? Percentage and a half a year. Our total FTEs for teachers, we're at 260. We've increased by 8.1%, which is a good thing. This is a positive thing, by 281. And I brought this up just because it came up in negotiations too, and I want to make sure people know this. As far as our district office, which is outside the classroom, I said we want to focus on the classroom. We've only gone up by 0.43, so just over 2%. And so the classroom is the core, and that's what we want to keep it. We want to keep, if we're going to add personnel, it's going to be in the buildings as much as we can. The other thing I want to show you is enrollment here. As you can see, K-12 enrollment projections, and Tony's going to be coming up here a little bit and go over long-term facility planning. On top there, the blue there, is the elementary enrollment. It started with 1740 back in 2013-14, and right now it's at 1845, so it's increased by 105 students. It's been pretty steady, increasing 32, 35, 24 students. This past year, 18 students, which is our fewest that we've had, and then we're projected for 13 students for next year. In the middle there is the high school enrollment. Back in 13-14, we were at 1216, and you can see that big year between 14-15 and 15-16. We increased by 64 students that year, but there's been a steady increase there, 26-11, and this past year was a big jump with 37. And again, when we get to the staffing proposals, obviously we need to address that. And the middle school has been a little bit more inconsistent, been down 3, up 29, down 20. We had last year a big increase, or this past year a big increase from 912 to 960. So we had 48 new students. And so again, going to the staffing proposal that's going to be coming up to you, we need to lower the class size there with them. Let's go to Metro X's class size comparison by grade level, just so you know where we're at with elementary, middle school, and high school. Elementary is 22.80, ranks 5th, and there's 36 school districts. They're mostly suburban school districts or ex-urban with us, and Belle Plaine and Jordan are part of this study. So we rank 5th, and you can see throughout the years, in the last 5 years, we've stayed right at 4th, 5th, or 6th and kept the class size as pretty low in comparison to other districts. Middle school, obviously, that one's a little bit higher and higher rank, and you can see they're bordering at 30. Right now, just over 30, and I said we're going to be addressing that with class size too. Their model, their delivery system is expensive, and that's why they're always going to have it. And that I knew that when I was the principal there. The teachers are about into it. We've talked about it. But with their delivery system, with the house system, how they do special ed, doing a lot of team teaching, keeping that personalized environment, having advisory, having the intervention period, and daily teaming with collaboration, that is something that works for them, and they're always going to be higher on the ranking. And then high school, pretty much for the most part in the middle, but you can see edging up to 30, and this is for all classes. So we're going to be proposing to add one more FTE, and we're going to have to really keep track of the numbers there too. The next slide, when we talk about region, it's 35 other school districts. We're talking about the average, and this is for elementary. And again, you can see where we compare. Again, this is to the region average. Okay, and so as you can see as we go here, and part of it's because of the change in the guideline, we're a 1 point difference from the average now, while in past years it's been a little bit more than a point or than that, and almost actually back in 13-14 almost 2 points. By grade level comparisons, when we talk about the average, and we got by grade level there, so in the course of 5 years, 6 grade levels, so there's 30 grade levels, including those 5 years. There's only been 2 years where we've been above the state average, or the region average. If you go across on 2015, 16, in 4th grade, we had a 25.9 class size average, and the region average was 25.6. And then this year, 3rd grade at Falcon Ridge, we were over by 0.3 of a point than the region average. Otherwise, we've been well under the region average, and especially in the primary grades would be the most notable thing there. The other thing I did with neighboring school districts, and you know, I think it's important also what I put on that range there with some. And we'll just start with the kindergarten up top. Our smallest class was 17 students at the beginning of the year. I think we had a drop right before school, but we increased. Right now we don't have, and so the numbers on the range there, that's the actual kids in the class. So when I give you averages, it doesn't mean that if there's 4 teachers, they're all going to get the exact same amount. That's up to the building principal to decide how he's going to distribute that. But in our kindergarten, we have 17 as the lowest. It's actually 18 now because that one classroom increased by 1. But you can see what Lakeville and Prior Lake Savage, I thought I'd take 2 neighboring school districts, like demographics. Primary grades are somewhat similar. They're a little bit higher on class size average, obviously. But you can see the range, and I know their policies are different than us. They have a maximum, Lakeville and Prior Lake Savage, that are at 28 to 32 with the third through 5th grade. They go up to 32, both of those districts there, but you can see the difference when you compare it to those neighboring districts. The next one, give you an idea where we're at. And again, when I say it's an inexact science or it ebbs and flows between schools, when you're trying to do this, because it's not that easy to do, you can look at class size averages last year, and I've got the old guidelines on top there that are in red. And you can see Raven Stream last year, by and large, was at the low side and low to middle on almost every grade level. Falcon Ridge was on the low side at every grade level. The only one I guess was even close would be fourth grade. And then Eagle View last year was a little bit more on the high side of the range for most of their grade levels. So Eagle View was, and those are when we look before the school year is starting, we're really looking at, you know, those, making sure they stay within the guidelines. And again, if there's a grade level team that's got a lot of special needs students, you know, it can stay within the guidelines, and if it's on the high side, we might add a teacher. This year, with the new guidelines, it almost went the opposite. You can see Eagle View on the very bottom there was on the low side of the range. Falcon Ridge for 3 of their grade levels, and especially third grade that was over, are on the high side of the range. And same with Raven Stream on 2 of their grade levels. So it changes from year to year. And like I said, the one that was completely outside the range, like I said, that increased by 4 students, was third grade from Falcon Ridge. But it changes from there. The last thing I'm going to show you too is, and this is something that became a need, and taking a look at here is just where we're at with support staff. And I just pulled Waconia. We did a Southwest Metro study, and so there's other school districts that are shown, but Waconia is about the same enrollment as us, very similar demographics. They actually don't have social workers, but they have counselors. You can see we have RTI, they do not have RTI. Reading specialists, we both do. What we've added in the last few years, and this is definitely a need, and it's important to our kids, our parents, our staff, is to address mental health. And that's, as a district, we've got 1.6 mental health workers now to work with kids, and something we haven't had before. You can see Waconia doesn't have this. And the other thing, we hired last year a full-time psychologist, which half his time is with behavioral interventionist. The one I don't even have on here is the one that we got through a grant through Scott County as a half-time chemical health specialist. But those are important positions to keep in mind too, because it's more than ever with mental health and some of the behavior things going on, we really need to support the classroom more with that. So that's something that I appreciate your support on and understanding of. So I'll take any questions right now.
I have more of a comment. When I look at some of these numbers for this year, and I look at what our community is doing, I think there's a lot of houses being built, and we're probably not gonna lose students next year. So we wanna make sure that we have room in some of these grades, and also between schools, some of them are 5 students different in their average class size in some of the grade levels. And I think we need to be aware that if there's going to be that big of a difference, we need to consider what's up at the other schools. Because you can't, I mean, someone who has 22 in their class and someone who has 27.4, it's going to be a completely different.
Yeah, it's tough to
That was
track, and
fourth
like I
grade.
said, on that one that you're talking about too, the one with the 22, we had drops right before.
Yeah.
It's frustrating. You know, we're doing the best we can, and like I said, with Samantha and Janelle and the building clerical, they're doing a fantastic job. But once we get, you know, over that guideline for sure, or we have discussions even within the guideline if there's a special situation.
Well, and I think if there's one that's way at the bottom and one that's way at the top, you know, you have to be aware that maybe that top needs to come down to make it more equal between the schools.
Yeah. The only thing we got to be careful of with the guidelines is when you do the, you know, let's just say the range is 21 to 25 and you've got a class at 25 or 25.5, you add 1 staff member, sometimes it's gonna bring it down to 19 or 20. You're gonna be well below. And that's what I'm saying you gotta be
But
careful
if
of.
the other one is already 21 or a little below, I mean, that's what I'm saying we
Yeah.
should look at.
Yep, no, and we do. Trust me, we do.
If one of the elementaries is close to being full, is there a possible boundary
We're-
adjustment?
We're gonna be going over that in a second here.
Oh, okay.
No, we're not doing a possible, I don't think we will,
Okay.
okay.
Just
Uh,
asking.
We have room, and Tony's gonna go over that, right now.
Okay.
In a little bit, not right now, but in a little bit here. So, we should be fine, and you know,
As,
I didn't
as
go
a
over-
whole, the buildings are good as far as good balance right now. We've got is
it's not, you know, I'm speaking at Elko Newmarket City Council on Thursday. I was hoping the boundary change, it increased by 60 students for Eagle View. We're still waiting for that area, and we're getting a plus open enrollment, you know, from Elko, from Lakeville, so that's a positive thing. So it's closer. But when you look at, I'm not going into real details on the enrollment, but let's just take Falcon Ridge, for example. The fifth grade has, whether it's 113 fifth graders going out, right now we have 77 coming in for kindergarten. Is there gonna be more? There'll be more than 77, but right now we're projecting 77, and, you know, whether we get 90, so actually, like, Falcon Ridge will be coming down. The one, probably our biggest concern right now is just keeping a close eye, and Tony will be going over this with Raven Stream, and, but looking at possible options. So we're doing that tonight. Tony's gonna do that because obviously we wanna be proactive in our conversation, rather than reactive 2 or 3 or 4 years down the road. The other thing I just wanna say too is just, going back to I probably didn't emphasize it, or I probably didn't say this, but when you talk about fund balance going down, our saving grace right now is our enrollment. So people need to understand that. If we didn't have increased enrollment, what did I have, 7.4% of the, you know, because we're, you know, when I talk about the legislature, we're getting 2 and 2. We're spending more than 2 and 2. But it's the right thing to do. Because I said, we were underpaying a lot of our employee groups, and especially the teachers. So it's the right thing to do. But hopefully, when you talk about new homes getting, that we continue to get that and still do a good job keeping the class sizes as low as we can. I'm very sensitive to that.
I also, Dave, I wanted to respond to one of your comments, and this isn't an excuse or anything, but our building funds come from bonds and are completely separate from our normal operating budget, and they never shall be commingled with each other. So we can build, and we did a really good job. We added a whole bunch of things to keep us on our budget for our building, but we couldn't take any of that extra money and move it into our general fund. It's all for capital improvements because of the bond sale issue.
which was voter approved.
Right. If it's quick.
Like you were already forecasting at Falcon Ridge North for his class size.
Well, and I think we'll have to leave that to the admin because they'll watch those numbers and, you know, it's not gonna go in with 30 kids in your,
I'll just be looked at, 'cause
yeah. And they do watch that. I mean, we get updates on kindergarten enrollment practically weekly once they start enrolling.
Yeah, the ones right now, we have the numbers at each of the grade level teams, and there's hot spots that, for example, Falcon Ridge right now 1. Now, could it be more? I say that right now, and it could be second grade could have 12 new students over the summer. Who knows? But the most likely one, yeah, you're talking about that grade level. Eagle View, I mean, it's a great job. I mean, I got the principal at Eagle View mad at me too, but we've got 3 grade levels that are high right now too, that tonight you'll hear right now we're decreasing to. Are we gonna decrease to? If I was a betting person, probably not, but we've got to take the conservative side on this, at least at this point right now.
Right. But
That's
they
all.
will, they will watch it as the
In
summer
the long
goes.
run, not being fiscally responsible causes us to go into financial problems, and that has to be made up someplace else.
Right, and right now, I've asked all the principals and directors, we're making reductions right now, as we're working on reductions right now. Things that teachers, no one's gonna, parents, you won't even know. But we're gonna find things that are outside the classroom that we can cut, because we're going like this. And we've got to correct it, but we still, you know, have that, there's just that balance that keeps going back and forth. Again, the thing that's gonna save us, that slows things down, is increased enrollment. But, I don't,
Only if we can pick the grades that they go into, right?
you know. All right?
Any other questions or comments? All right. Next, we're going to go on to the school year staffing recommendations.
So in preparation for our fiscal year 18-19 budgeting process, and I will have a first reading of that budget on May, is it 28th or 20, I'm not sure, the day after Memorial Day, not sure of the date. But this staffing proposal, as if you approve it tonight, will be the basis then for how we budget for staffing, as well as contract settlements. So first of all, elementary. Based on current kindergarten enrollment, which is at 290, I guess I didn't check it today. That was as of last Thursday, I believe, when I checked it. Is it still at 290? I guess, I don't know. It changes daily sometimes,
Look back and look
up
at
or
that.
down 1 or 2. And the 17-18 rollover into next year. We know of some new students, and we also know of some drops, but it is still early. So we would decrease 3 FTEs, 1 at Ravenstream, and we're watching second grade because that's a little bit high. Falcon Ridge right now, there'd be no change. And Eagle View, we decreased 2 FTEs, and we're watching second and fifth grade there. And again, it will change as enrollments come in over the summer. It always does, but this is what we know right now. And as enrollment changes, excuse me, then we bring that to the board for approval as we have to add new staff. The key is that we can't decrease over the summer. It's very difficult. So we decrease now and then we add. That is the fiscally responsible way to do that. Middle school, we plan to increase 2 FTE core teachers, social studies and science. And to offset one of those FTE increases, we're eliminating 2 education paraprofessionals at the middle school, and I'll be working with the union to find places for those. They're fairly senior in the district, and I'll be working with the union to find places for those general education paraprofessionals. High school, we have a net increase of 1.0 FTE due to higher enrollment. We're going to increase 1 section of art, a section of business education. We're adding a 0.25 in language arts, 0.083 math, 2 sections in science, 3 sections of world language. We're also bringing back one of the integrated learning programs, I forget what the name of that program is. It's not the health one.
Global business.
Global business, yes. And then we're going to be increasing somewhere else 1 section. We're moving students out of FACS, and we have to find homes for them. And so right now, the counseling department is working on finding homes for them, so we're going to have to increase 1 section somewhere, but we don't know where yet. So that is to be determined. And we're going to hold...
Is that based on enrollment? Is that why we're moving kids out of FACS?
It's because right now we have a teacher teaching during duty, and she's requested not to do that this year. And so then we have to cut 2 sections, and then we have to find homes for those students.
So what type of a teacher are you going to hire to fill that?
Yeah, we don't know. We're going to have to figure out what happens, and sometimes you can add, the high school is very different staffing.
I think he's looking at art.
Yeah, high school is very different staffing because you can move things around, and it's very different from elementary and middle school. It's very interesting. Then we'll hold on the CLC staffing with the possibility of adding a section for second semester. We typically, start a little bit lower in the fall, and then it increases in enrollment as the school year goes on. And so right now we anticipate in math having the ability to add an extra section there if we need to, based on the staffing at the high school, because we share a lot of FTEs with the CLC in the high school. We share some staff. Some staff are specifically for the CLC, and some staff is shared. Special education, right now, we're gonna look at adding 1.5 FTE teachers, and it will be partially offset by reduction, still yet to be determined. We're working with Amy on that, and we'll be working with her over the next couple of weeks on that. Gifted and talented, we're gonna be adding a .2 talent development coach facilitator. This year we had a .8, and we're going to be increasing that to a 1.0, and we will utilize state gifted and talented reserve revenue to pay for that. So that's not an increase to the general fund budget, because we have reserves sitting on our balance sheet that will pay for that.
What is it again we get from the state for, per student?
$13 a student, I believe. Yeah.
And is someone in a part-time position in that now?
Yep, someone's a .8, and they'll be moving to 1.0. Yep, you're exactly right. Yeah, so that is the staffing plan as we see it today, and just ask for your approval on that, and then we can go ahead and start the budgeting process, or continue the budgeting process. Any questions?
What does it do to the budget? Is it kind of a whole status quo budget recommendation because of this staffing?
It will increase the budget, definitely.
It'll be an increase.
Yep, it will be an increase. You know, it depends upon who, you know, who comes and goes and all of that. So the preliminary budget is always a kind of a guess, because you don't know who's gonna resign, you don't know who we're gonna hire into some of the positions we're hiring in, so it's kind of a guess, but my gut would be say it's a slight increase to the budget.
Which hopefully will be offset by more students.
Right, right. You know, we have, you know, pretty conservative enrollment projections, and we're hoping that they'll be higher than projected. They have been the last several years, but you know that we always take a conservative approach to enrollment, because it gets you in very, very fast financial trouble if you overestimate enrollment.
And we've gone now 7 years without, you know, having to make cuts. I mean, we're making adjustments or reductions in a way to offset these, but truly having to make a concerted plan, we have not done that.
Right.
And we, you know, as we do this, obviously Sandy is very conservative in her projections with enrollment and stuff, but it's better do it this way than, you know, trying to reverse it, because it's a slippery slope to get on.
And I guess the one thing that isn't on this, because you approved it last board meeting, was the equity and the Dean of Students position at the high school. That wasn't in this, because you already approved that last 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago. Okay.
I get a motion to approve the staffing.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0. Lacrosse.
No.
No, facility. Enrollment and future facility needs presentation. I'm getting ahead of this long.
All right, I've asked, Tony, we're gonna be going together to Elko Newmarket, and so he's been in contact with Von Dirks from Old Architect, and he's gonna go over some things here with you, and, you know, get done here, or as he goes through it, ask questions, be free to ask questions, so go ahead.
All right, good evening, Board of Education, Mr. Debner. Thank you for letting me present on this. The first slide, as Tim said, we're preparing for Elko Newmarket City Council tomorrow night, and wanted to share with you, Thursday, I apologize, and wanted to share with you our presentation and how it is keeping you up to date on the enrollment projections and our buildings. So we put in a few of the awards that the New Prague Schools has received over the last few years. We're very proud of those, and recognizing both national and some state awards there. Also put in our bond and operating levy referendums, and we've had some good conversations tonight, and one of them this kind of reinforces is the school district, the community, and the support that our district has provided our school district, and just wanted to put those on there. So tonight's presentation, we're kind of starting with the trends from the last 5 years, then where we're currently at, and then what our projections are, and how it relates, because we've talked a lot about pupils tonight already, and how that relates to our actual buildings. And, you know, it's been talked about a little bit tonight in the bond referendum, and how we've made our improvements over the last couple of years, and they're finally completed and going very well, I wish you'd add. But what you have here in front of you is a K-12 enrollment trend. From the far left is a 13-14, all the way to the 18-19 projection on the other end. And that specifically just shows the growth over the last 5 years for our school district. This is the K-5 picture here, and we just kind of broke that apart and seeing the growth from 13-14 all the way up to what we project 18-19, but 18-64, of course, in year 17-18 is a solid number, and it shows that growth over the last 5 years. That's an average of 71 students over the last 4 years, from 13-14 to 17-18. An average of 71 students. Here we broke down the 3 elementary schools. On the far left, or the maroon, would be Eagleview. In the middle, which is a little bit higher, would be Falcon Ridge, and then you can see where the boundary adjustments were made. And then the far right is Ravenstream, and again, over the last 5 years, the growth of those. And you can see where the boundary change was made between Eagleview and Falcon Ridge. Middle school, high school enrollment trends. The maroon on the very left is the middle school. The high school is on the right. Average of 31 students for the middle school and 15 for the high school over the last 4 years. Just to give you an idea. And again, those are averages.
What's the capacity for a high school and middle school? Is high school 1,500?
Getting it to.
Oh, sorry.
Gary, I like the way you think. Okay, we're moving that direction. So that was the last 5 years where we've been. Current enrollment, and these are specifically for Eagleview, Falcon Ridge, Raven, middle school and high school as we basically sit here today, the number of students that we have in the seats in those buildings as of this school year. Now our projections, and Jared, we'll get to yours here in one more slide. You can see a little capacity there, but my next slide is even a little bit better. So our K-12 enrollment projections, and Sandy really just spoke to that. These are for the next 5 years, making certain that we're conservative on those, but it does give you an idea. So on the very left-hand side, or the taller maroon ones, are the 3 elementary schools all added together. From 1819, 1876, over to 22-23, the year 1889. In the middle is the middle school, and on the far right would be the high school. And those are the projections for the next 5 years.
Yep.
Now to get to your question, Jerry, building capacity. So I've kind of got 3 different things on this slide here. The maroon would be currently how many kids are in each building at this time. So let's just take Eagleview on the left, for example. 567 students are currently at Eagleview right now. The gray, right to the right of it, 723 is what on paper we're told by Wold Architects that is the maximum capacity, or that's when your building's going to be very full or get full. If that many students are ever there, 723. On the black bubble up above, that means 78%, or the percentage of it is how full the building is at this time, 78%, and approximately, and again, approximately 156 more students we can hold at Eagleview. And then you can see all the way over to the right.
I thought Eagleview and Ravenstream were the same building.
I was seeing that too.
It's a little bit different. It was built a little bit different because of the early childhood special education on there. And you'd have to remember some of the smaller rooms that are in there could be, most likely that's the difference. That's what I've always been told by Wold is the early childhood section.
But they're not counted in that 567 number, right?
No.
No. 'cause of-
No, they definitely are not. Jerry, did that answer your question as far as the capacity?
Thank you.
So in speaking with Wold and working with Wold, they feel very confident that at this point, what they call is no pinch points. There isn't any one specific building that today or next year we're really, really nervous about or something we have to do something drastic to help a building out. They're all what they would consider in good capacity balance, and that kind of makes sense. When the elementary grades consistently reach 315 to 320 students per grade level, that's when they say you should begin to be concerned because you are reaching your max capacity within each building. Then you need to go back to what our long-range plan would be. I'm going to jump ahead 2 slides and kind of show you what they mean. I made a slide. This here, so that's exactly what Wold Von Dirks was talking about. You can see our current 2nd grade and 4th grade are at 322, 323. That hits that 315 threshold, which if all 6 of those grade levels were up in that gray, then you'd be having some pinch points. Then you would have some buildings are definitely feeling very, very full and feeling towards capacity. But at this time, and what we do is, this 5th grade's gone, and then our kindergarten comes in. So if kindergarten's high again, now maybe you've got 3. If kindergarten's low again, now you're still at that 2. So every year that's going to change, but that's just a great way for us to really watch each of the buildings. So the last slide were possible options, and this is the information really is from the Wold architects. They talk a lot about the starter homes, and they've taught us that typically those homes come with young kids and new families. So we do watch those building permits in all of our communities very closely. The additions on the elementary in the short term, if one or more of our elementaries really got full, really got tight, that would be something that would be an option, would be to look to add on to one or more elementaries that may have that really pinch point or a real full capacity. Otherwise, you could consider boundary adjustments. And then the last would be planned for the middle school and high school would be a very long term. And as you can see, we have room for 288 students at the high school, so it doesn't appear that that's going to be coming anytime soon. If Newmarket and Elko Newmarket, I'll get that right before we go out there on Thursday. If Elko Newmarket is the primary area of growth, they've always asked, even back when we put the elementary school out there, how soon will the middle school be coming? How many students do we need to have before a middle school is built? Right now, what Wold is saying is that we just don't have the growth out at Elko Newmarket. We aren't seeing an increased steady growth that really puts our school district really in any tough position. Like, we need to really look now at some increases. We're staying pretty steady with that. That could be an addition. If K-5 did increase quite a bit out at Elko Newmarket, in addition, and then of course in the future as 6-8 begins to increase within our district, and if and when it does, you could look at a second building, also middle school, which would provide an entire K-8 education out in the Elko Newmarket area. Some districts also expand with a 6-12 building. If we believed our high school was also nearing capacity, 6 through 12 is nearing capacity, you could look at that type of a building. That is just another option. And as the last comment says, just remaining flexible. It's kind of like we've heard tonight, adjustments are made on the move or on the fly. We're conservative in our projections, but we watch these things very, very closely, working with Mr. Most in the buildings and grounds as to the best ways to use all of our buildings and hopefully fit those kids in. But we want to be proactive in the conversations, and that's what this presentation is for you tonight, and also the council, Elko Newmarket on Thursday night.
How much land do we have in the Elko Newmarket area to build on it? Do we have a significant amount, right? Or not sure? Is it 50 something?
I can't remember the exact acreage, but it's enough, obviously, for middle
It
school.
was like 60 acres,
Yeah,
I think
that's
that we
it, okay.
purchased.
Okay.
And I think that was with the idea that perhaps someday
a middle school could fit
Well,
on that site?
I
When-
think there
when-
was enough land for whatever they
Yep.
recommend for.
It
middle
wasn't
school.
high school, but it was middle school. It was, yeah, and that was, they have not forgotten that. And, well, in the bond referendum, you know, of course, the way they look at it, and they supported our bond referendum, and all the construction took place here. So you need to understand that. So they're like, when is it gonna be our time type of, you know, consideration? But it still comes down to, you know, where is the growth?
yeah.
So.
All right, any other questions? Thank you.
Now we can go to lacrosse.
Yes, as we discussed at the work session, and we've sent out in the packet, and when Mr. Skogerbo, our activities director, presented to you, we're confident in our numbers for lacrosse for both boys and girls. We think just like what we did for soccer or dance team, that we should start first with the junior varsity program, and then hopefully the following year will become a full-fledged varsity program. But we'll start with one team, one coach at that JV level in our first year, and to get the ball rolling. But based on the numbers that we've gotten from the Lacrosse Association, it's my recommendation that we add lacrosse as a school-sponsored activity.
And I believe Mr. Skogerbo said there's plenty of place to practice and.
Yeah, and he
for
talked
that.
about areas west of the community center. You gotta keep in mind, I know he didn't say this, but I know it's a possibility, is after track and field to be able to use the stadium after track is done. We do have space at Raven Stream, so I don't think space will be an issue. You know, the big thing, if you hear space is an issue, it is right now in the spring and summer when we have youth programs, and I'm not talking school programs, but the youth programs with boys and girls lacrosse, boys and girls soccer, softball, baseball, it's an issue. And you know, we've been in discussions, or I've been in discussions with the city, but I always tell them it's their turn to buy.
I'll make a motion to approve the adding of lacrosse sport activity.
Second?
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0. Do you have a resolution to read there?
At this time, I'll entertain a motion to consider a resolution for the termination of a non-tenured teacher.
I'll make the motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to consider the following resolution relating to the termination and non-renewal of the teaching contract of Brittany Dorendorf, a probationary teacher, whereas Brittany is a probationary teacher in Independent School District 721, be it resolved by the School Board of Independent School District number 721 that pursuant to Minnesota statutes, that the teaching contract of Brittany, a probationary teacher in Independent School District 721, is hereby terminated at the close of the current 2017-2018 school year. Be it further resolved that written notice be sent to said teacher regarding termination and non-renewal of her contract as provided by law. How do you vote on this resolution, Jerry?
Yes.
Jean?
Yes.
Kitten?
Yes.
Kim?
Yes.
Sherry?
Yes.
Don?
Yes.
Dennis? Yes, item passes.
I make a motion, Madam Chairperson, that we approve the elementary school handbook.
Second.
I have a, there's another resolution, isn't there?
Oh, sorry.
Sorry, I didn't see that one. I guess there is, I'm sorry. At this time, I'll consider a resolution to consider the non-renewal of teaching contract for Corey Immerman, a probationary teacher.
So move.
I'll second.
Been moved and seconded to consider the following resolution, whereas Corey is a probationary teacher in Independent School District 721, be it resolved by the School Board of Education 721 that pursuant to Minnesota statutes that the teaching contract for Corey, a probationary teacher in Independent School District 721, is hereby terminated at the close of the current 2017-2018 school year. be it further resolved that a written notice be sent to said teacher regarding termination and non-renewal of contract as provided by law. How do you vote on the resolution, Don?
Yes.
Jerry?
Yes.
Kim?
Yes.
Kitten?
Yes.
Jean?
Yes.
Jerry?
Yes.
Dennis, yes, item passes. Sorry about that.
Now Don can make his motion.
Thank you. I make a motion that we approve the elementary school handbook.
Second.
I have a question. Were there changes that should be discussed at,
I didn't see any. Well, there were some pops.
4 and 5 table of contents,
I was gonna say nothing
just minor changes, right?
Mine-
nothing.
on all the handbooks, basically.
Okay, but all of them had just
high
minor
school.
changes, okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
I'll make a motion to, for the Transportation Employee Handbook,
Second.
2018-19 school year.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
Madam Chairperson, I assume the superintendent would give us any major changes on any of these handbooks. Okay. Madam Chairman, I would like to approve which one, the Transportation Parent Handbook for 218-219.
Second.
Yeah, and if you look through them, there's like lines out in
Or
red
strikeouts in
and
red.
replacements for what changed.
But they're minor changes.
Right.
Yes,
Right, right.
there is nothing that's.
Dates or wording.
Right, a
I would
date
tell
that
you.
had to be revised or updated.
Okay, all in favor of the parent handbook?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
I'll make a motion to approve the middle school activities handbook.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
I do have a question on the high school one. I noticed
Yep.
the change in the parking permits, or what was that about? Anything serious? Is it first come, first serve, or? Not
Is
familiar.
that a
with it.
change or is that?
I think it was a change. Wasn't it first come, first serve for permits? Now it's the first one there, is what I noticed.
Yeah, they're not gonna be,
They're not assigned
I was
They're
anymore.
not
say
gonna be
they're not
assigned
They
anymore,
haven't
basically.
been
They haven't
assigned for a
been,
couple
yeah.
years.
Okay, but it was highlighted anyway as a change.
right,
so-
they never did it.
Oh,
Okay.
So now they're actually gonna follow what they have.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Now it's gonna be
That was a
interesting.
novel idea.
That's what happened.
Yep.
Okay, I'll make a motion, we approve the high school handbook.
I'll second
Second.
the motion.
That, can I assume that I don't park at Jordan to go to high school? Okay, thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
Chairperson, I make a motion that we approve the teacher's contract for 217 and 219.
Second.
And we went over a lot of this and
Yep. I just want to make a comment, and I talk about this with other employer groups too. Been through 3 negotiations right now, and I will say this, we are fortunate to work with the negotiation team of the teachers. We don't get everything we want, they don't get everything they want. I guess that's what's supposed to happen in negotiations, but things are done in a very respectful manner, and it's actually some of an enjoyable experience. And
Once it's over, right?
once it's over, yeah, no, it's been good for 3 straight years now, and just with all negotiations too, the amount of work that Sandy Lynn does in preparation and how she handles things. We're not completely, we still have a few out there, but the teacher one obviously is a big one, and it goes as well as it could possibly go.
I was just gonna add to Sandy, I know when we would field your questions during the work session, she came well prepared and well researched, so thank you for that.
all in favor of approving the teacher's contract?
Aye. So then we just go through these one after other. I assume there's no comment, or?
Well, he has to back out. We can do, are you talking about the MOUs or the other
Yeah.
ones? MOUs?
Well, there's 2 more
Do
masters.
the 2 masters
Masters,
first,
yes.
yep.
I'll make a motion to approve the master agreement with Nutrition Services, which
Se-
would be all the cooks and the other workers.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
Then I'll make a motion, we approve the master agreement with principals for 2017 through 19.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
We have to do these individually?
Now we got her.
We can approve all.
Got to take out the Dvorak one then.
The one, okay. Which one is that?
Oh, God, I don't know. She'll tell you.
Here it is, 931.
Yep.
9.31 has to be pulled out.
A motion for 9.15 through 9.42 with the exception of 9.31.
Madam Chairman, I would like to pull number 9.31 out of the bunch.
Maybe do that one first and make it easier.
Okay. So a motion to approve.
Okay, I'll make a motion, we approve the memorandum of understanding for transportation mechanic for 2019, or 2017 to 19 for Tim Dvorak.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Abstain.
Motion passes 6-0. Now 9.15 through 9.42.
I'll make a motion to approve the memorandums of understanding number 9.15.
I have a question, 9.42. We already did that one. Are we doing it again?
We approved the position, but we didn't.
We didn't approve the memo of understanding. We just
Right,
approved.
we approved the position and the salary last time, but we did not approve the other terms and conditions for the position, and we need to do that as well.
We
The
approved
insurance and all that. Yeah.
Through 9.42? Not
No,
right.
no, that one stays in there now.
Stays in.
Because we
You
just.
said
I
that.
said through 9.42.
Oh, yeah, right.
This is confusing, too many of them.
So do I need to read all of the,
No.
what they are? Okay. Okay, I made the motion.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0. Final thing, declaration of official intent. Sandy, are you doing this, or
Official attend,
the
what's that?
official intent to approve the payment?
Come on, Sandy.
Sorry, Tony was talking to me.
Tony,
Tony?
detention.
Okay, so back in 2014, the board approved a reimbursement resolution that allows, in advance of receiving bond proceeds, to pay for construction costs of projects. And that is good until the board would rescind it. However, every time we have a bond issuance, we have to do this intent for the specific project. We do have, and you don't have to do this for preliminary expenses like architectural fees or soil testing, those kinds of things, but you do have to do it for construction costs, and we do have one invoice from Ebert Construction for some equipment that they ordered for a little over $30,000 that we need to pay out of our general fund, and this allows us then to, when we receive the bond proceeds in May, to reimburse the general fund for that expense.
No, what's the maximum? I'm sorry, what's the maximum that you can do on this, approve?
You can do up to, I believe, 10% of the bond issuance. In the actual intent, I put $50,000 just in case there might be another bill that comes in. I don't anticipate it, but instead of, just to be on the safe side, $50,000.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve the declaration of official intent.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0. Wants to adjourn.
That ready? I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.